we all had access to it.
But do you realize, I don't even know what you mean by insensitive. I mean, I know you're all capable of being insensitive, but what, toward me anyway, but what, and toward the president, but what do you mean insensitive?
If it is okay, let me put it this way. If it's okay to release that transcript to the American public, then
Isn't that what you wanted? Isn't that what you were begging for?
Is there another transcript that is a word for word verbatim of that phone call?
Those things don't exist. In other words, and I know you've all talked to people who work in other administrations who say this is exactly the way these calls are done. There are no audios. Are you saying that when this White House says it's a complete unredacted version, it's not? What are you looking for in a different version? That isn't the question you asked. No, her question was also, I don't think that respectfully you understand that every single call between the American president and a foreign leader is by its nature classified. So let's start with that. So I don't know why you're saying you don't see anything in there that's classified. It is classified. It's a call between the U.S. president.
Classified secret, so why was it on a server that was reserved for sensitive compartmentalized information that was so sensitive that the server was air-gapped and not connected to a network? Why was something that was classified secret, as shown on the document, put in that server when the document itself says it didn't belong there?
The document does not say that. You're saying that, and respectfully,
says it's
you have about
secret.
as much experience in national security and classification of documents as the microphone does. So just stop. Right. You read into a lot of things which you want to see. You saw collusion for 2.5 years, you and your buddy Adam Schiff. So let's not today. I'm going to repeat the answer I already gave several times. And I gave it yesterday. Yeah, no, that's what you want it to be. My answer is responsive. The people who handle such things said it was handled appropriately. The point of that document is everybody has access to it now. But that doesn't satisfy you. That's why he didn't capitulate to the angry mob. He released the document to show that what he said is true. There was no quid pro quo. Nobody mentioned the 2020 election. Nobody talked about what's his name, Joe Biden. Precious Joe Biden, you're all trying to prop up a little bit longer. No, as a political opponent. No, they were talking about corruption. They were talking about corruption. And wow, maybe, yes, because they were talking about corruption. And we all like to talk about Joe Biden when we're talking about corruption because as vice president, he's bragging about it January 23rd, 2018 in front of the Council on Foreign Relations in New York City. He's bragging, and I told them, mob boss for sure, I told them I'm only here for 6 more hours on the ground. You better fire that prosecutor or you won't get your $1 billion loan guarantees. That's what we're saying to you, the Ukraine who lives in the shadow of Russia, that's what we're saying? Oh, right, they wanted it done that way, right? With the vice president.
The president talking about treason. Is that intimidating a witness, Kellyanne?
Kellyanne, what's your main
Why is
message
it
to
called
the
a
council?
transcript? Can you please tell us why it's being called a transcript as opposed to a memorandum of understanding? Because it was not verbatim conversation that was documented. Can you just clarify?
It sounds like you don't see any high crimes or misdemeanors either. Are you serious? This is a question you were all asking 3 days ago and you didn't think he would release it.
I'm giving
now
you
you
an
have it.
opportunity to clarify.
What would you like
Ms.
to call it?
Conway.
What would you like to call it?
I would like you to clarify.
No, what would you like to call it?
Why it's called a transcript as opposed to what it really is. It's just notes that could have been edited and revised.
Is that what you're doing? You're accusing people who work for.
In the room.
You're accusing people who do this for
anyone.
a living.
I'm asking you to clarify. This is
No, you're not asking me for clarifying.
Why
You're harassing and embarrassing.
What do you say?
Kellyanne, on background checks are talking about.
I'm sorry, Kellyanne. The president is talking about treason.
Guys, I'm not going to be yelled at. I'm not going to be part of your mob. I'm like the only person out here taking your questions, and I'm not going to just because you want to go viral or you want to sit on Twitter all weekend like a lot of you do. That's not how I choose to spend my weekend. So have fun. Listen. I'm here to try to answer your questions, but I'm not going to be screamed at. I'm not going to be screamed at. I'm not going to allow yourselves to go viral and frankly act rude on the grounds of the White House. It's just
Appreciate
rude.
you taking our questions.
Well, you do and you don't. You do and you don't. I'd appreciate the questions not being so repetitive. I don't call you enemy of the people, but I sure the hell can call you enemy of the relevant some days. Ask a question that matters that you haven't asked.
How is the question, Kellyanne?
This is this witness. He's not intimidating anybody.
He's talking about treason and penalties for treason. Isn't he intimidating this whistleblower from participating with Congress?
Does the whistleblower who you've all held up as a hero?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, isn't that intimidating a witness?
No, it's not intimidating a witness. How? How is it intimidating a witness? You're just making that up, and you're
treason.
shaking as you ask.
What's your main
Practice in the mirror next
What's
time.
your main message? Kellyanne, one policy question, if you wouldn't mind, despite the
The main
impeachment
message
inquiry.
is there are no high crimes and misdemeanors here. People were talking about impeaching this president before he even got inaugurated. And now they're getting their wish. Nancy Pelosi finally capitulated to her angry mob. At 1 p.m. on Tuesday, she told the Atlantic Festival, pull it, everyone, no, we need an investigation first. We're not close to impeachment. We need an investigation first. A couple hours later, she does the worst thing a woman in power can do, which is she just changes her mind because the men around her said, change your mind. We need an impeachment. She did that without seeing the transcript of the call, the memo of the call, that you seem to don't like what's in there.
Are you saying she was intimidated
Clearly,
by that?
and something happened. I don't know what she had for lunch, an equivocation sandwich. I mean, at 1 o'clock she said, we're not going to do that. At 4 o'clock she had a call and changed her mind and went out there with a conclusion in search of evidence. You know there is no high crimes and misdemeanors. That's why I think people are getting worried. And by the way, if this is the way Congress wants to spend their time, then I guarantee you the American people who are wise and smart people, God bless them all, they will see it. They will see what's not getting done. They will see no drug pricing, no getting health care for the 29 million Americans who 9 years after Obama Biden care passed don't have it. They will see no infrastructure. They will see no fixing the TV parian floors. They will see nothing to keep this Trump economy humming along. That's why he has to do it himself.
Is there a plan to hire more lawyers?
Seriously, is the administration considering curbing investment flows into China?
But just look, this is all about getting a good bilateral trade deal that no longer screws the American worker and American interests. The president's ready to do a deal. They were very close last spring, as you know, as he says often, and he feels like the terms were changed last moment. He's made very clear, as has his team, they want to do a deal. He thinks that the tariffs are working. He suspended them for a couple of weeks because China's celebrating something on October 1st. But he wants a good bilateral trade deal. He also wants them to make good on their promise about fentanyl, and he also is watching them with regard to the Hong Kong protesters. He has said all that.
Kellyanne, despite the impeachment inquiry, Kellyanne, is the president still willing to work on background checks with Democrats?
Because there is concern about not enough lawyers in the White House legal counsel. Even some Republicans feel like that Blood could have some more support.
Who are they?
Do you not feel like there's need?
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't hide behind nothing and ask me questions like that. Why would we need to do that? They want to impeach the president. Let's see where this goes.
The Clinton White
Let's
House
see where this
hired a
goes.
war room.
So far, all I heard, they had felonies on Clinton. Clinton lied to Congress on August 17th, 1998. I'm actually old enough to remember watching him do that, watching an American president lie to a grand jury about a sexual relationship. And I see Hillary, some brand new expert on impeachment. I bet she is. She sat in the office I now have in the West Wing. I'm actually being productive up there. And she sat in that office while her husband was being impeached for lying to the grand jury, trying to cover up a sexual affair. Are we anywhere near that? Do you see an analogy here? If that were true, then Adam Schiff wouldn't have to make up. No, I'm amused.
Kellyanne, despite the impeachment inquiry.
Just a big picture question. What is your message to the whistleblower?
I don't have a message to the whistleblower. I have no message to the whistleblower.
Kellyanne, on universal background checks, may I, for a
After
second, on
everything that the
something?
country has been through, this White House has been through for 2 years, how could the president justify getting on the phone with a foreign leader and raising the name of his Democratic rival?
You're kidding,
the
right?
Democratic
You know what he raised? He raised the
in any
2016 election, the
capacity.
only election he talked about on that call.
How could he do it, Kellyanne?
You mean after what you guys have put us
Russia
through for
investigation?
2.5 years? Is that what you meant?
Kellyanne,
do you know how many headlines, you know how many tweets you sent out about collusion? You wrote an article yesterday that's simply false about how we're all reacting in the West Wing. We had a good chuckle over it.
How could he raise his rival with a foreign leader?
He's not a rival. Joe
Democratic
Biden's his rival.
Talks
Joe
about him
Biden
all
is
the time on the
self-destructing.
campaign trail.
Well, because he's amused. He thinks it's funny. He's amused. By the way, Joe Biden is self-immolating. But hold on. The president did mention one election on that call, and he mentioned 2 elections. He mentioned the Ukrainian elections. The presidential election had happened. He talked to the Ukrainian president after that. The parliamentary elections happened. It was a congratulatory call for that. The Ukrainian president then goes on to tell President Trump, I learned a lot from you. We're draining the swamp here. I ran on anti-corruption, and it's been a landslide. We all know that. And so the president was saying, you can help us. You can do me a favor. Some of you deleted the whole rest of the transcript, which is a disgrace. You can do me a favor. What was the favor? He said, you know, we've just been put through this for the last couple of years.
Do me a favor, though.
No. We've just been put through this. You saw Bob Mueller testify yesterday. We've just been put through this. I heard this thing called CrowdStrike. The president wants to get to the bottom of the 2016 stuff. That's the only election he mentioned. He never mentioned 2020. He never said, oh, Joe Biden scares me. Whatever political geniuses were telling him that are very foolish.
Why raise his name at all? Why not just leave it to that, what you just said?
They were talking about corruption, and a sitting vice president threatened to withhold loan guarantees of $1 billion from Ukraine and puffed his chest out about it and was all tough guy, mob boss like, to coin a phrase, at the Council of Foreign Relations and on the Council of Foreign Relations, and his son had contracts there, obviously. Hunter Biden,
Kellyanne, despite the impeachment inquiry, Kellyanne,
but it's so.
Is the president still willing to
it's
work
so nice.
Democrats
It's actually
on
so
universal
nice.
background checks, Kellyanne, despite the
This is
impeachment
not
inquiry?
new information. The
Which is-
president never called for Ukraine to investigate until Biden became a presidential contender.
Why is it appropriate for...
Can I have one on
Guys,
policy?
I'm not just going to have you shout questions. I'm happy to answer them. But you're just shouting questions. You're just shouting questions.
The discrepancy between the president and President Rouhani on Iran, and what's the plan going ahead in terms of
The
negotiation?
discrepancy? What does that even mean?
Rouhani said that the U.S. is willing to lift sanctions in return for talk, and the president denied it. Can you explain, please?
So are you believing Rouhani?
I'm asking you for
No, you didn't ask me a coherent question that made any sense.
Okay, let me
You
repeat
said,
it.
here's what the
Let
Iranian
me
president
repeat it.
said.
This is what the president of Iran said, that the U.S. is willing to lift sanctions in return for talks.
And what did the president say when he's been asked about Rouhani?
He denied it. I'm asking what's the plan going forward in terms of negotiation.
That isn't what you asked. That isn't what you asked. You asked me to decide who we believe, Rouhani or President Trump. No, you have to come up with questions, guys, that make sense, that you've thought about.
Can the president get anything done with Democrats?
Any talk of delay?
But it's very good to hear.
Is he willing to get anything
very,
done with
very
Democrats
good.
in light of this?
It's very, yeah, but the Democrats aren't talking about that.
Universal background checks with
Whoever
Senator
mentioned
Chris
universal
Murphy?
background checks?
Well, I'm asking you.
No,
If, for
whoever
instance,
mentioned that.
What do you mean whoever mentioned
I don't think you've been
He's
paying
just
attention to
asking.
the
No,
entire...
no. In other words, I'm asking the question. That's an example of something that has been talked about. That
No, it
perhaps the
hasn't.
president could work with Democrats on.
Nobody's
I'm
talking
asking
about
in light of
universal
the
background checks.
I'm asking. I'm bringing it
You
up
have
as
to
an
ask the
example.
Democrats that
It's a policy question.
No, you have to ask the Democrats that question.
Is the president still willing to work with Democrats on getting things like universal background checks done, despite
Again, you're
an
asking a
ongoing
question
impeachment inquiry?
that's not relevant and not very thoughtful or legitimate because you're
Why is
talking
that?
about universal background checks and
Yes.
nobody else is as a bipartisan measure.
Well, everyone's talking about impeachment. I was
maybe
trying
you
to
mean
draw the attention
background
to
checks.
something that's
Do
pretty
you know
important.
what background
We have
checks
the anniversary of the Las Vegas massacre
Do you
coming
know
up
what the
this next
background?
week.
And that was bump stocks. That was bump stocks.
The
and this
president has
president
indicated support previously, at times,
For-
some support
come on,
for
for-
some degree of a conversation towards moving towards universal
No,
background checks.
no, you're wrong again.
Is
They
he
all
gonna
know this.
Background checks towards
You're
working
not,
with
you're not very
Democrats.
smart.
Is he going to sign a CR?
Not going to listen to this. Listen, I'm doing you a favor. I'm not going to do this, okay? That's just, you screaming questions at me is very uncivilized. It's not nice, and frankly, it's not journalism. Okay, but I'll go back to Kristen Welker when she said, you know, the country had just gone through this for 2 years, more than 2. But that sounds to me like you don't want the country to go into another ridiculous, unfounded investigation, wasting people's time and money. What do you see in there that you think is found? I know you're all acting like activists these days. What do you see in the transcript?
Well, first of all, that was released by the White House.
Right.
It was not
Don't point
released.
at me.
It was not a hearsay. It was released by the White House.
No.
The transcript.
No. Hearsay is what the whistleblower is putting in there because the whistleblower didn't have first. That's what people are saying, firsthand information. Yes, you didn't expect the White House to release it, so now that you did, and there's nothing in there that would justify an impeachment inquiry.
In fact,
really?
your
What is
ICIG
it?
said.
What is it? Oh, unbiased reporter who's not an activist. I would have confused you for one. What do you see in there?
Well, first of all, it doesn't matter what we see. It's what the ICIG and the acting DNI
Really? Because
saw.
the OLC
They
said said it wasn't even an intelligence activity. It was, quote, routine diplomacy. That's number one. Number two, the criminal division of the Department of Justice investigating said there's no campaign finance violation. But I'm sure you, as an unbiased reporter, not acting like an activist, although you sure sound like one to me, has a different opinion of that. And then we should just discount what the OLC and the DOJ said. Right?
But first of all,
Listen, I would respect. I'd have a lot more respect if you would just say, "I never wanted him to win. I didn't vote for him. I'm worried that we have no idea how to beat him at the ballot box, and so we're here to try to impeach him." I'd have a lot more respect. Just say that.
Any talk of delaying October 15th tariffs?
Why is it appropriate?
Any talk of delaying October 15th tariffs?
Why is it appropriate for the president to store conversations in a secret
The
database
president
when he
didn't store
criticized
them. The president doesn't even know what that system is. Why would he? He's the president. We don't know how the Situation Room in the NSC does their job. We do know that early in his administration, calls with the leaders of Mexico and Australia leaked. A couple months after that, a conversation he had in the Oval Office with the Russian ambassador and another Russian official leaked. And so my understanding is that different protocols were put into place. But this president, when he had an opportunity not to figure out was the transcript put in bin A or bin B, but could he release it? He released it. You have it. And you're still asking that question, although you have access to the phone call. And it's not enough because it doesn't scratch the itch of how to get rid of Donald Trump, how to erase the last 2.5 years, how to undo the 2016 election, how to preclude the 2020 election. This is not how democracy works. It doesn't work that way.
Do you agree with the president that it was a perfect phone call?
Are you okay with limiting the number of persecuted Christians?
An attorney, if they do pursue this process, does it not open up the door to do investigations into the Democrats maybe that have done things in the past? It may bounce back.
Well, first of all, I'm a fully recovered attorney, 12 steps and everything. So still admitted to practice, I think, in 4 states. But we're not even thinking about that because this president wants to make good on his promises to the American people to keep this historic economy going, to be a net exporter of natural gas and oil, to actually have 150 federal judges and counting, to keep deregulating where they're duplicative and intrusive and invasive, to keep on trying to bring peace and prosperity to multiple places around the world. So I'm certainly not talking about investigating the Democrats. I don't understand why they're trying to impeach him based on a transcript of a call that they had not seen. It makes no sense to anyone here who, to quote Kristen Welker and others, quote, lived through 2 years and $35 million of taxpayer money for a Mueller report and Mueller investigation, then Mueller testimony that was a big letdown, and you all know it because you played it up for years. And I would just respectfully caution everybody, if you're going to cover this wall to wall for the next however long the charade goes on, be a little bit fair. If you can't be fair to the president and to this White House, be fair to democracy, be fair to the American people, and make sure they know Adam Schiff made up an entire phone call yesterday and said it as if anybody who's tuning in and just getting a snippet of that only heard that part. There's no disclaimer underneath him saying he's making this up. He's a drama queen trying to just make up a whole story, a phone call that never happened. He's imagining it for the cameras, hoping you'll invite him on, and you will, and he'll lie a little bit more. That's just not fair to the American people who rely upon the ability to turn on a hearing and listen to their elected representatives tell the truth. And look, the DNI acting director, Mr. McGuire, a great public servant, has been serving in our Navy since 1974. He's under oath, but Adam Schiff wasn't. And when he makes up a story like that, it hurts the entire process. So if you're going to cover this wall to wall to the exclusion of everything else that needs to get done in this town by that Congress, at least be a little bit fair.
Have you ever lied to the American people? Kellyanne?
What is the mood of the White House staff? Kellyanne, we've limited the number of persecuted Christians at 5,000 who can come in. Are you okay with that as a Christian?
Ken Cuccinelli addressed that earlier. I think you've got your words wrong. Go ahead.
No, I'm afraid not. I'm asking
Can
if
you
you're
tell
okay
me what
with
is the White House's strategy to fight this impeachment process, and what is the mood, the president mood right now? He seemed down the past 3 days.
What? Have you been with him? Because I have.
Yeah, I've been following everything he's saying in the press
really?
conference.
Yeah.
Even
Oh,
the
does he look down to you? Are you a psychologist now too?
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, it was not just
psychologists, marriage
just
counselors.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't dignify such a completely ridiculous question
okay, so
with a response.
What is the strategy then to fight impeachment?
The strategy, I mean, we laugh out loud when we see, we actually had a whole collection of the stories today. I won't repeat everything that was discussed, but you're not worried about his mood. You're worried about him getting reelected. But look, he's great for business.
What about the mood of the White House?
Talks happen October 10th.
Why would I be in a bad mood?
President Trump said he would really.
To your point about everyone shouting at the same time, no one wants to be shouting questions. We just want to ask questions. there any discussion about bringing back the briefing so that we
But
can
look, our
raise
great
our
press
hands
secretary made very
and do
clear
this?
that no time soon, because things like this happen. In other words, that's what happens. We make, we make superstars of individuals who just want to ask the same question with the camera going and then sell books or get TV contracts or whatever. That's not the role of the press, really, in my view. I mean, sure, you can ask what you want. But when I ask you, well, you're a good example of that.
Yeah,
when I ask you of, so rude. Really just like full on sexist now, but that's okay. How's your tape recording going on my back? You're just.
Is he going to sign
in
a
any
CR?
event, I think Stephanie Grisham's doing a great job owning the responsibilities of a press secretary in President Trump's White House, which is to try to get back and provide quotes and context when those who are writing stories or reporting stories are asking them. They work around the clock trying to provide that information and supporting what is an incredibly available President of the United States, available to you, the press, available to the people. The democratization of information this week was capped off with the president releasing the transcript of that call, but it really started with him communicating directly with the people in pool sprays, in press avails, in press conferences, on his social media feeds. He's very accessible to you. And the fact is, and I wasn't deciding what the role of the press is, I could really care less. And I've seen the press's poll numbers recently. I'm trying to help you here. That's why I'm out here. So if a couple of you want to be rude, insult me personally, get your shots in when you think you can, when you think it's fun, that's fine. I don't even see most of it. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here as a public servant trying to explain the policies of what we're doing here, trying to answer questions that are reasonable and well-reasoned and thought out and relevant to the day's news. Sometimes you ask them, sometimes you don't.
About using him as a spokesperson?
Thank you, Ms. Conway. I appreciate you answering my question. I really do. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you. The black leather was a badge.
Obviously, things got a little heated there during this small presser at the White House with Kellyanne Conway. Live look right now outside of our mountain camera. Beautiful day. Supposed to get up to 85 here in Arizona. Finally, some temperatures when you can go outside and not feel like you're going to melt from being too warm. I do see that our Amber Geiger trial has come back from their short break.